Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fourth Women at Work discussion. Today, we are looking at the diplomatic sector, and we are delighted to have the only 3 of the 7 female ambassadors in UAE with us today. So it's a pleasure to have you all with us today.
I have the pleasure to introduce the 3 amazing ambassadors we are all waiting to meet. So please give a virtual round of applause for Her Excellency, Ambassador Quintana, Ambassador of the Philippines to the UAE. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. How are you? It's a pleasure to have you with us. I hope that you're hearing us. It might be the connection that is a little slow right now. We also are joined by Her Excellency, Ambassador Méndez, Ambassador of Mexico to the UAE. Again, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. How are you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Marvin, and thank you for your invitation. It's really very important to talk about this kind of matters. Thank you for the Sheikh Saud bin Saker Al Qasimi Foundation for organizing this Women Forum, which is very linked with the current situation of COVID. It's the issues of the situation of the women in the world. It's very linked with the pandemic of COVID-19. So I'm very grateful to have this invitation. Of course, always you have my support to talk about this kind of issues. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. And we're also happy to be joined by Her Excellency Ambassador Nissilä, Ambassador of Finland to the UAE. Welcome, and how are you doing?
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here this afternoon, and actually very happy to be sitting in my office. We have had long periods of time in the spring and summer not being able to do that, and I'm here with my staff, and that's always good news and a happy day.
Amazing. Good to hear that. Thank you all for taking the time to take part in this discussion. We really appreciate that. And as you can imagine, Hanadi and myself, we have many, many questions for you. But we thought maybe it might be more interesting for our audience to start this discussion in a slightly different way by asking you to please share your journeys to becoming ambassadors of your countries to the UAE. So maybe we can start with you, Ambassador Méndez, if you don't mind, to please share your journey to becoming Mexico's ambassador to the UAE.
Well, it's a little bit difficult question. We have in Mexico, as I think it's happened the same with all with other countries, we have a very difficult system of selection. So all the women and men have to apply it. Totally, we have to apply at least at the beginning of the career, I think 20 different examinations, cultural issues, even psychological examination, language, general culture, of course, history, laws, geographic. So it's different examination, and we have different steps. So there is a general examination that if you pass this examination, after you can pass the other step. At least we have now 3. And once you have passed all this examination, you have to study it in the Diplomatic Academic of Mexico, which is, the name is Instituto Matías Romero. And once you pass these studies, at least are 1 year, each step of the career, you have to do again other examinations. In totally, I don't know, because I think our audience knows that we have different steps. The first nomination is attaché, diplomatic attaché, then third secretary, second secretary, first secretary, consular, ministry, and then ambassador. And in each nomination, you have to apply it and to have a very good informs of your superior, and you have to do an examination, oral and write, and you have to know all the currently situation in the world and of course in your country. And once you are, you get the range of minister, well, the nomination is, it's only to do, the president of Mexico has to do the nomination of ambassador. But once you are ambassador until the rest of your life. And you can have different adscription in different countries. But once you are ambassador, it's the ambassador, your title for the rest of your life, even when you are not ambassador in a country anymore. But it's a long career. So I said all the students and the persons who want to be diplomatics, that you think about this career as to enjoy each step. If not, it's very frustrated. If you think that you will be ambassador the next day that you enter to this career, it's super frustrated, and it's not a health position. So you have to really enjoy each step and try to learn as much as you can, because it's about learning, process learning all the time. So that's my answer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It sounds like an amazing story, an amazing journey. May we continue with you, Ambassador Quintana, to also hear about your story of becoming an ambassador?
Thank you. Earlier we had an unstable internet connection. I hope I won't freeze again. But anyway, thank you. Thank you again for this invitation. I wasn't able to thank the organizers. And you know, that question will take me back at least 27 years ago. It's a long journey. I started in the ministry in 1993. As was explained to you by Ambassador Francisca, it's a long career. It is something that you know, you just have to be persistent and determined. When I entered the Foreign Service, it wasn't really because I have a very specific reason for that. It's because I just wanted to be in government. I just wanted to be following a career in government. And at the same time, I wanted to have a professional growth while doing it. And there's only two choices for me then, either in the military or in the Foreign Service. But because I'm a woman, I chose the Foreign Service. So, you know, just like in any other Foreign Service, different countries, you have to pass an exam. And that exam is very comprehensive. In the Philippines, this is considered one of the toughest exams. Very similar to bar exams, even maybe harder according to some people, because you don't know what's gonna be asked of you. Just like what we're doing now. Sometimes we are asked so many questions and you're supposed to be an expert on many things. So that was like how we build up on the stages of the career. And then when you become eligible for ambassadorship, that's when Ambassador Francisco was saying you get a lot of disappointments, a lot of frustrations, because it's never gonna be guaranteed. You know, this appointment is from the head of state. So this is like you are a representative of the president. So there's a lot of consideration on who to appoint in a particular country. So even if you're eligible, there is still that stage wherein the president or the head of state will have the last say on where you will be appointed as the ambassador of that country. So again, 27 years. This is my first ambassadorship. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us. We would also like to hear, of course, from Ambassador Nissilä about your story.
Thank you very much. Very similar story to colleagues, even though they come from exactly the opposite ends of the world. But I joined the ministry 23 years ago. I was among the 30 who passed the exam to enter the ministry out of about 1,000 applicants. Our specialty is that we have a very female-dominated entrance, and it has become even more so. Some 70, 80, 90% of those accepted to the ministry nowadays, they are women, and we are looking for ways to have more men joining. I thought I would give the foreign ministry 10 years or so. I felt that it was a bit old-fashioned and maybe bureaucratic, so I wasn't sure whether I would like it. And I thought 10 years I have to try, and then I can decide. But I have really enjoyed every minute of it. It's been wonderful to do very different careers at different points. I've mostly done a European career. I have actually lived 11 years in total in Brussels. So it's a long time. And my idea was to use my international experience, my language skills for my country, Finland, and for making the world a better place to live for everybody. I was very idealistic at the time of joining. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing this.
So I really enjoyed to hear this journey. Like it looks like how many hard work has been behind putting all this together to reach the place that all of you are here today. So I'm curious to know what inspired you to join this diplomatic sector, Ambassador Méndez. I would love to hear from you. So
for me, it was a possibility to use my experience to help my country, my language skills and everything, to really make sure that the people in Finland, they have welfare and security, and we can support that as diplomats from abroad, giving examples and telling stories from here. But also, of course, it's a wonderful pleasure to be working with people coming from different cultures and different countries.
Thank you, Ambassador Nissilä. I would love to hear as well from Ambassador Méndez, please.
Thank you. It's a very nice question. Well, I have to be very honest. My first inspiration was totally, maybe very concrete. At that time, I wanted to travel all over the world and to know a lot of different cultures and people. But later, I realized that the most powerful inspiration was to represent a country, which is very, it's very empowerment, because you, as all my colleagues, ambassador, we are represent our country. So it's more than represented a company or NGO, and not because there is not important or there's less important, but when you represent your country, it's a great privilege and a great responsibility too. But now my great inspiration is that, and I love my country. I really love my country. I am very proud of Mexico, and for me it's a privilege to represent my country.
That's great, Ambassador Méndez. Thank you so much for sharing. I would love to hear from Ambassador Quintana as well.
Well, in my case, I was heavily influenced by my father, because my father was in the public service. And I thought and I saw for myself, even at a young age, how a government career could have an impact on the lives of many people. So I thought that if the Lord gave me some talent or some skills, that I'd like to offer that for the benefit of a larger sector of the society. So I didn't really want to be in the private sector. I think that was very, very clear to me from the very beginning, since I graduated from university. I just wanted to be in government, and to me, it's just a matter of choosing which agency of government I should be entering into, and I chose the diplomatic service because I think it has very good reputation. It's a very professional organization. So it is something that would also help you grow professionally. So yeah, I'm heavily influenced by what I saw from my father.
That's great. Thanks.
It's so interesting to hear about what inspired you, but also in addition, before you shared about your journeys and how you became an ambassador. I would say it also sounds like a tremendously long journey. So we are also interested in whoever wants to share out of the three of you, what obstacles you might have faced along the way to becoming an ambassador. Does any one of you want to share? Ambassador Méndez, you're looking like you wanted to directly address the question. Can we ask you to go first?
Well, it's a tough question. No, yeah, it's an obstacle course, really. It's like you are jumping each obstacle, and it's a long journey. It's not 10 meters or 200 meters of course. So, well, the main obstacle, I think it's time to talk about to be women in this career. One of the obstacles, it's especially when I entered to the foreign services, it's to be women, because at that time a lot of men dominated the diplomatic career. And it's not easy, but additional to be women, it's to have children, because you have to manage the leadership of the women in to raise children with your career. So it's tremendous, because you have to move every time, and every time you have to build a structure for your children, the school, the entertainment, some supports that you need to bring your children. It's difficult. And the other thing, which is not an obstacle, but you have to keep in mind your partner, your husband, because at that time, and now it happened the same, it's very normal that one man ambassador has his wife, and it's normal that she follows him everywhere, but not the opposite. It seems that we are a strange human being, that our partners follow us by everywhere. So it's not a normal and social acceptable situation. So it's another obstacle for the women ambassador, the ladies ambassador. And for the rest, we have the same obstacle that the men. So we have to demonstrate that we are efficient, that we know that we are in a learning process, to have a common sense and to have a criteria for manage an embassy and your team. But to be women, it's a little bit difficult in this career.
Thank you so much for being so open and sharing this with us. Ambassador Quintana, do you want to add anything?
Well, I would just say that one of the, I would consider obstacle would be the system itself. You know, this system is not, it does not operate on merit. You know, as I said earlier, it took me 27 years. I mean, no matter what you do, that's how long it will take. You know, in other fields, you can reach the peak of your career without waiting that long. But that's the system. That's the system, and it could be stifling. That could be an obstacle, really, because it's not something that would reward the hard work that you do. It is not something that would recognize, you know, the talent that you have. You just have to wait your turn, basically. In our system, we have everything by law. You know, you don't get promoted if you don't have the tenure. So you really just have to go through it step by step. And that's a big obstacle because that's a big, you know, source of frustration. If you are the type who is not patient enough. So I would say that's a great obstacle for some. But I agree with Ambassador Francisca. You have to enjoy every step of it. If not, you know, you'll really be disappointed. So that each step has its own merit, and even if you're not yet at the peak of your career, it's okay because you're learning a lot as you go along. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insight. Ambassador Nissilä, do you want to add anything to that as well?
I fully recognize the phenomena that colleagues have been describing. Maybe I just add that in case of Finland, this idea that this is a way of life, which has an impact on your whole family, it doesn't concern that, it doesn't make that much difference whether it's men or women. I have noticed that recruiting young people to abroad, that in our case also men are very conscious of the impact on their families. We have a structure where basically every family has a dual career. So also women want to work, and they are conscious of what it means if their husband leaves for foreign postings. So everybody in Finland struggles with this same issue, how to combine your career and how to run a smooth family life.
Thank you so much for sharing this perspective and adding this to the discussion as well.
It's really interesting to hear all of this, but it looks like how you are successfully overcoming all these barriers. So as we can see, I just want to add also, like, curious to know, what is the biggest misconception people have about your job? To start with the Ambassador Quintana.
The biggest misconception is that they think that it's all glamour. Well, not always, but yes, it's glamorous, but not always. You know, an ambassador has to do a lot of things. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not. I have my own share of issues that I have to deal with and to get my hands dirty. You know, one time I would be doing some coordination for release of some kidnapped victims, for example. That's not fun. You know, that's not fun. That's a lot of responsibility. One time I had to see the ship crew members, Filipino ship crew members, whose ship has been attacked in the Hormuz Strait. So, you know, the Coast Guard of the UAE had to bring me, 18 nautical miles from Fujairah just to be able to see them. And, I was actually thinking, shall I go up the ship or shall I just talk to them on the deck? So, those things, and I'm a woman, so those things are hard to do when you're suddenly asked to go somewhere and just to make sure that your nationals are okay and they're safe and all that. So yeah, being an ambassador is glamorous, but not always.
Yeah, that's true. It's really hard. Thanks for sharing that. I would love to hear from Ambassador Nissilä as well. If you would like to share something.
I was going to point to exactly the same issue. If people only see the surface, if they think that you have nice dinners, you're always with a cocktail in your glass, that's a misconception. Some, even in Finland, they think that I live in a holiday destination. So we should always keep in mind that these events that, of course, we have in our calendars, they come on the top of the normal working days. And they are there to reach the real targets of being able to connect Finnish people with the local people, being able to analyze the economic and political situation is in this country. They are not an end in themselves.
Thank you, Ambassador Nissilä. Ambassador, if you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, of course. No, it's a very good question also, because I agree with my colleagues. It could be a very glamorous life, and that the people think that we are always in cocktails, in parties, in receptions. But you have to keep in mind that we are working all the time. You have to be available as ambassador 24 hours by 10 days. Your time is not your time at all. You have a lot of responsibility, as the Ambassador Aurora said. And you have to be always very polite, even if you have some complaints with your community, because it happens and it's normal. You have to be always very polite, very respectful. So sometimes it's not easy. And also we have to have a very good relation with your ministry, because we have a lot of restriction of our all the things that is spent in the residence or in the embassy have a lot of control. So you have to fight all the time, and to have to be very good relation with your ministry, to try to have your embassy and your residence in a good situation. So there are a lot of administrative issues that you have to manage very well. And this is in the backstage of our glamorous life. No? So yeah, there are a lot of things that the people, when thinking an ambassador, they don't know very well, which is behind all the life of the ambassadors.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Nissilä, for sharing all these experiences. I think you touched already somehow my next question, which I was so curious to know how the typical day looks like for a diplomatic. So I would love to hear from Ambassador Nissilä.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question, but I'm afraid I have to answer. There's no typical day. Our days tend to be a mix of connecting with people, writing political analysis or economic analysis, leading and managing the embassy, representing our countries in different types of events, being active on social media. It's a mixture of all this. It's like a cocktail that's shaken. These elements are there, and you never know how they end up. And even in the morning, sometimes you don't know how the day is going to look like until the end of the day. There might be some surprises and some new things coming up. Of course, now with COVID, it has changed a lot. Now we are sitting mostly in front of our computer screens and having different types of events, and we know all about Skype and WebEx and Teams and Zoom nowadays, and that's the main channel of communication.
Thank you, Ambassador Nissilä, for sharing that. I think now everyone trying to get used to watching all these screens 24/7. So, anything Ambassador Kurti would like to add?
Well, your day is defined by the issues of the day, basically. A lot of times, a day of a diplomat, as at least for me, would be something like this. I continuously have to check messages. Manila is about 4 hours ahead, so they're already telling me or asking me questions while I'm still asleep. So by the time I wake up, I have to check if I have some instructions from the headquarters, what did my foreign minister say in his tweets? And this is an important country for the Philippines and the Filipinos. So somehow I would learn what my minister is thinking from his tweets. So, so that's important to be able to access those at the beginning of the day. And then that's what's gonna define your day, you know? Do you need to answer those issues? What do you have to do to implement those instructions? And that is also separate from the regular things that you have to do. But a diplomat is always about making connections. I agree with Ambassador Marianne, you know, we're always trying to build bridges. That's every day of us being an ambassador, that's the mainstay. We always have to make sure that the relationship with the host country is going well. That's not to mention if you have initiatives to how to make it well, but just to maintain that strong connection with the host government, with the officials of the host government. And nowadays also the public diplomacy is very important. I represent a very big constituency here. I think we're the third biggest expatriate group. So that in itself has its own demands. When I remind myself that there are 1 million Filipinos in the UAE, I said to myself, you know, I have to be well behaved. I have to make sure that I am responsible for everything that happens to them. And I have to make sure that my relationship with this government is strong so I can be of assistance to my people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Ambassador Méndez, do you want to add something to that?
Thank you. Yeah, well, I totally agree with my colleagues. There is no single day as a normal day. You have different days each day, well, except in this COVID situation. But well, you have to be present in different events to manage the office, because there are a lot of things. It's an office like other office. You have to manage the personnel, the staff, the administrative things. You have also to be very attentive to report to your ministry the very relevant issues and interesting issues for my country, for example. And one of the most important things is to have a very good networking, because if an ambassador is in a country, suppose that it's the representation of their countries. And one of the most important things is to have a connection with the relevant actors of the countries, the private companies, the governmental sector, the NGO, the cultural and academic sector. So you have to try to expand as much as you can your networking, because you are the link. As ambassador, you are the link between your country and this country. So the networking is very essential. And I agree also with the Ambassador Aurora. You have to be very attentive on all the situations and problems with your community. In the case of Mexico, we give a lot of importance to protect and to give attention to Mexican community, even if it's not so big as Ambassador Aurora has in the UAE. But for example, in the United States, we have a huge Mexican community. And we have 62 consulate in all over the territory of the US. So we have this tradition to protect our Mexican community in every place in the world that you are. So this is a very important mandate in our case. All the Mexican ambassadors in the world have to be very attentive of this. Mexican community.
Thank you so much for sharing. This is really giving us a lot to think about. How about with looking at the time, we see that the questions are coming in from the audience. We ask one last question and then we're going to open it up for our participants. So also keep sending us your questions.
So before we open the floor for our audience, I just would like if you can give an advice to all young women who's watching us today or in Iraq or in UAE, if they are really interested to pursue in this career to be in diplomatic services, what your advice will be with them. So to start with Ambassador Nissilä, if you would like to share some.
Thank you very much for this question. My advice is that go for it. It's a wonderful but demanding career. I think a good basis is built on studying many different things, even a bit things that you cannot maybe justify at that moment. I did in my studies, I did, for example, history of art, and I did economics and sociology. So all kinds of things can prove to be handy in the end, because it's such an interesting job where things come up. Have an open, vivid mind and be open for other people around you. Try to listen to others and not only speak. I think there's plenty you can do to prepare and to be a good diplomat. And once you are there, don't worry too much. Things will always work out in the end. It might always not be as evident as you would like it to be, but it is possible to have many roles. I hope not one woman has to choose between a career and work or family or being diplomat. I think it's something that can be organized and arranged with a good support from the family.
That's really encouraging. Thank you, Ambassador Nissilä, for all these advices. We would love to hear from Ambassador Quintana, if you would like to share some.
Well, if you're still thinking of what career to pursue, I think it really just have to, you really have to make a self-reflection. This is a career that has its own demands, but at the same time, it's really fun. It's really, you have a variety of experiences. I think I would not have lasted this long in this career if it's boring. So there's nothing boring about this career. You meet a lot of people. You experience a lot of things that you can use in your life. But at the same time, I think what will make you really stay in this career is a strong sense of patriotism, a strong sense of love for your country and your people, and that's really enough to get you going. It is very demanding. You have to be very responsible, but you know, which career is not, right? So, but if this is for you because you really think that you can actualize your aspirations, not just for yourself but for others, then it's the right career.
Thank you so much. I think we are running out of the time, so let's open the floor for our audience to ask their questions.
Maybe, I mean, like, and if that is okay for you, Ambassador Méndez, we can address the first question to you, and then you might also give a comment on the last question. One question is, how have you managed to balance your personal life and career? From the audience.
Well, good question. It's the magic of this career. It's one of the most difficult things. You have to be very clear on your professional priorities and personal priorities, and to have, as my colleagues said, you have to have a strong sense of service for your country, and to think that this career is a way of life. It's not a common career, it's very different because this movement and your disposition all the time for your country. But I think if you have very clear your priorities, you have to move very easy, and it's compatible. You have to have a very good career with a personal and enjoyable life. And the only thing is that you have to be very clear. Even if you have to enjoy more your life, maybe your career is not going to be so fast. It's going to be less fast, but you can manage and you can go ahead with all your plates in your hand. So, but it's, you have to ask yourself which are your priorities, and keep in mind very clear that I think it's you can be an ambassador and have children and have your family and your family in your country. So that's my point.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Is it okay for you if we always also bring the next question in, and then if you want to comment on the last one, you can still do that, of course. But I was thinking maybe Ambassador Quintana, one person of the audience is asking, does it make a difference to you being a female ambassador in the UAE or GCC versus other parts of the world?
You know, to be very honest, I think other people react to you in a way you want them to react to you. And in my career, I have never wanted the people to react to me like as I am a woman. You know, I have always conducted myself without any conscious way of showing that I am of a different, of a female gender. To me, gender is not material. I am who I am. I am equally a representative of my country as the other person in the room. So, and that's because when you do that, and the other side also receives you like how you want to be received. So I never had any experience that I can remember that I really think that I have been seen as a woman. And that's good, and that's deliberate on my part also. There's just one experience that I said, I hope they considered that I am a woman because I was invited to a late night meeting, and it was an important meeting, but you know, I had I was working from home, so I did not really fix my hair or all that. So, and then I was called to a meeting and said, you know, you have 2 hours to do it, to come. And I said, you know, women need at least 2.5 hours to get ready. so only that. But aside from that funny experience, I said, no, I've always conducted myself the way I would want to be treated. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Ambassador Nissilä, one of our, you addressed the situation of working during COVID and working remotely, being back in the office. I see that one of our audience members is interested how COVID and virtual meetings, or an abundance of virtual meetings, is affecting the diplomatic sector, and how will this change the way you conduct operations going forward beyond the pandemic?
Thank you for that question. I think it's something that I have had very much in my mind during the past couple of months. And I think diplomacy is probably one of the areas of work, one of the professions where losing the face-to-face contact has had the biggest impact. Our job is to create relationships of trust, and it's not easy to do that online because of the nature of online, and also because you don't get 100% what the other person is saying and how she or he is behaving. Somehow it has become more difficult. Then we have also come to realize that if the only way to get information is online, if the only way to do these things are online, why could they not be done as well as in Helsinki as in here? So I think we are facing also a big challenge of justifying why diplomats should be sent abroad, which is at a considerable cost. And we need to prove our usefulness whenever we get more to the offline world. I had, for example, an experience that I managed to present my copy of my credential letter, which is a big step in diplomatic life, to Bahrain, which I also cover from here. Now I'm able to function in Bahrain, but I have never visited there. And I don't think that's a very good quality for an ambassador who is supposed to be knowledgeable on Bahrain. I have met people online. I'm reading things, following newspapers, but I have never put my foot on Bahrain soil. So this doesn't really make sense. So we have lost a lot. We are functioning the best we can online, but I think if this goes on, we are going to be challenged by our administrations of maybe doing part of this job from our capitals.
Thank you so much. That's interesting. Ambassador Méndez, Ambassador Quintana, do you want to add something to that? Or that is not, because I have the next question actually that I just wanted to also directly address from the audience, which is one person is asking, are people sometimes surprised when they meet you because they were expecting a man?
Well, my point, I said it at the beginning of the meeting. If we want to talk about the situation of the women and gender equity, if there are no men in the meeting, well, we can talk by hours and nothing happens. Because it's not about women, it's about society. So if you want to change some patterns, the women have to change and the men have to change, and the children also. So it's not about the women, it's about some patterns and about the society. So that's why I'm very glad that you, Martin, are co-chair this meeting, and I hope so. I don't know if there are some men are participating in this seminar, so hopefully, because as always I said, it's not about the women, it's about the roles and the social patterns that we have to change if we want to change and to reach gender equity.
Thank you so much. Do you want to add something to that, Ambassador Quintana?
Not really here in the UAE, because UAE is a leader in women empowerment. You know, half of your parliament is composed of women. So, you know, we're 9 in the group now. I think we're 9 lady ambassadors. Of course, we're still a very small minority out of maybe 120 or so. But we're not seen as novelty. We're not seen as rarity. It just so happened that there's only 9 of us here. But when we meet with our counterparts, when we meet with the officials of this country, I don't sense any surprise why the Philippines, you know, sent a woman. I am the 2nd woman ambassador from the Philippines. Too bad I'm not the first, but I'm already the 2nd. So I cannot lay claim to that fame. But yeah, in the Philippine Foreign Service, women are not seen as rare. It's just so happened, and you know what probably sometimes, you know, as I told you about my experience going to the sea. When I introduce myself, maybe my countrymen are expecting a man ambassador, and the first thing I say to them, yes, the ambassador here is a woman, you know, because they might not think I am an ambassador. So, but I introduce myself right away. So, and then they of course would accept that. So I know not in this country. It's not a problem here. It's not a surprise here.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Ambassador Nissilä, do you also want to add something? I also might say that there is one person in the audience that also asked, since Finland is very well known to do very well on gender equality, if there is anything else that other countries can learn from approaches taken in Finland.
Yes, maybe just to add to this first question, that I think people are mostly positively surprised here to see women as an ambassador. I think to some degree it still is an exception here that I have to be honest about. And sometimes if I go somewhere together with my husband, it's my husband who's addressed as ambassador very, very easily. Maybe I don't look ambassadorial enough or something, but this does happen. But I think people then react very positively when they realize what the situation is. In Finland, it's of course not an issue. We have 30 out of 76 ambassadors, 36 are women, so it's 47.4% women. I hope next summer we will have an equal share. Let's see how it goes. Any advice from the Finnish perspective? I think the maybe two ideas. It's a long journey. We started in the beginning of last century, and there have been improvements taken step by step. And I think lots of things come from the structures of the society that support, for example, women working. You have good quality kindergartens, you have good quality schools, you have warm meals at schools, you have a safe environment where children can be quite independent. So and this comes at a reasonable cost, so it's not only for those who have a lot of money. So everybody enjoys these structures that support women being active in life. And I think in order to get there, we need to engage men. So if it's only women fighting for this, it will be an uphill battle. If you can join forces with men and they see merit in equality, they see merit in women being more prominently in working life, then it's going to work out.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, Ambassador Nissilä. We only have 5 minutes left, and maybe we can close with a very short question, and sorry for asking to keep your answers short in this case. One person is asking, what stands out working in the UAE? So maybe from each of you, 1 or 2 sentences, or as short as you can answer, and then we're going to bring it to a close. Ambassador Méndez, do you mind starting?
Well, I have to say it's a very good question. I'm very happy since the beginning. Really, the government of the UAE treat me very well, and for me, especially, it has been an advantage to be a lady ambassador, because we are, as you notice, we are 9 ladies ambassador, so we are very visible. So wherever we are, they know that there is the Mexican ambassador or the Finland or the Philippine ambassador, and they really try to do an effort that to be comfortable in this country as our home. So I'm very happy. I'm very grateful for the treatment that they gave me in these years. And we have an advantage also because there are some women's circles that the men ambassador have not access. So this is an advantage also for a ladies ambassador. So we as a ladies ambassador have access to men and the women circles of the society and authorities also. So, well, at the end of the day, for us, it's an advantage. And they also, the government of the UAE, are very grateful for receiving a ladies ambassador, because I think it helps for this effort to the policy gender that they have in the country. So it helps because the society, the authorities see that the ladies ambassador have a normal situation in this country. There's no any at all discrimination. So I think, and we are also promote as in my case, because we have foreign affairs policy about gender equity in our minister. So we are part, I am part of this policy. And if I have very well treated in this government, so we help each other to promote the gender equity in the country and in my country and in the world also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ambassador Quintana, do you want to add anything?
Okay, I'll be very brief. What stands out for me is this. I have my compatriots here since the beginning, almost the beginning of the Federation. They have welcomed my nationals here. And we are now, as I said, third biggest here. And they are very well loved and they're very well respected. As the ambassador of these nationals, I am a beneficiary of that love and of that respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador Nissilä, you want to add something as well?
Yes, with pleasure. For me, I think the special character of serving in this country now a bit more than a year is that it's really interesting to see a country which is so future-oriented and dynamic. We all can see what has happened here during the past 50 years, the achievements, and it's interesting to be following the process of preparing the next 50 years and where the leaders of this country want to take the country from here. This involves a lot of sharing of know-how in case of Finland, for example, in fields like education or digitalization, and exchanging ideas. And that makes the life of an ambassador in the United Arab Emirates very interesting in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear ambassadors, we thank you very, very much for taking the time to take part in this discussion today. And I think we speak for the participants as well, that you have given us a lot to think about. So we really appreciate that, and thank you very, very much. Also to our attendees, please also, if you're interested, our next Women at Work event is in November. We will tell you more about the topic and the time and the date very soon, so please check our website and our social channels.
I just want to thank our ambassador for a very inspiring conversation. I literally enjoy it, and thanks for our attendees for attending the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.